أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Your Excellency, the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, His Lordship, the Acting Chief Justice, the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Ministers, Secretary to Cabinet, Consular Corps, National Assembly members, service chiefs, heads of government institutions and parastatals, regional governors and local district authorities, the Lord Mayor of Banjul, the Paramount CFO and the Council of CFO and all CFO here, venerable religious leaders, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Gambians. Mr. Speaker, I thank the Almighty Allah for the special grace He continues to shower on us and acknowledge with sincerity that it is by His divine will and in the interest of the people of this great nation that I address you on the occasion of the state opening of the National Assembly 2013 legislative session. Mr. Speaker, I must begin this address by commending you and all the members of this legislative assembly for having successfully completed the 2012 legislative year. Your task as National Assembly members is onerous, yet very rewarding, as your preoccupation is principally to better the lives of your fellow citizens through the enactment and implementation of appropriate legislative frameworks. Mr. Speaker, our dear nation has come a long way since July 1994, and for the past 18 years, my government has remarkably maintained peace, progress, and development in all aspects of life. Although we are yet to attain the economic superpower status we yearn for, we are proud of and content with the progress made so far, especially in education, health, agriculture, public infrastructure, and the service sectors in general. Such progress encompasses the attainment of key targets embedded in the Millennium Development Goals and, most importantly, Vision 2020. Notwithstanding the gigantic strides made thus far, as we edge closer to the target dates for the realization of the objectives set in these two important development blueprints, we must renew our commitment to self-reliance, hard work, independence, and prosperity. In addition, we must reaffirm the values of discipline, honesty, and hard work that have been the hallmark of government since 1994, based on the teachings of Islam, our noble religion. Mr. Speaker, to exemplify the outstanding progress registered under the leadership of my government, I will proceed to highlight some of these achievements and in the process outline the development roadmap for 2013 and some of the attendant challenges that may confront us as we forge ahead. I will begin with the economic climate of the country. Finance and economic matters. Mr. Speaker, in 2011, the Gambia experienced one of its worst droughts in years, which caused crop production to drop by about 60% and GDP to contract by 4.3%. The drought and its impact on the lives of the people propelled the government, with the help of our development partners, to intervene by providing food, seeds, and fertilizer to mitigate the effect on the poor and the vulnerable in our society, especially the farmers. Government succeeded in mobilizing resources for drought relief to the tune of $14.3 million, worth approximately $140 million, with approximately $140 million or $4.6 million from domestic resources. This strong intervention resulted in a rebound in 2012 with real GDP growth of 2.3%, which was supported by continued growth in tourism of about 10% of GDP. Manufacturing weakened in early 2012, especially granule processing, and construction remained weak throughout the year. Despite pressure on food prices and a weakening of the Gambian dollar, inflation remained under control at 4.9% year-on-year in December 2012. The initial disbursement from the Extended Credit Facility, ECF, helped to stabilize the exchange rate stability during the first half of 2012. Mr. Speaker, the Gambia continues to face a heavy debt burden, with interest on domestic debt consuming 21% of government revenues in 2012, up from 18.5% in 2011. Including external debt, interest consumed a little over 25% of government revenues in 2012, up from 22.5% in 2011. In addition, as of end 2012, the stock of domestic debt, much of which consisted of treasury bills with maturities of 1 year or less, stood at about 34% of GDP, up from 33% by end of 2011. Although the payment of interest on debt is a huge burden on government, prudent fiscal management was ensured through proper management of our debt portfolio. Sustained improvement with public financial management, as measured by the World Bank's country policy and institutional assessment, allowed for an increase in the Gambia's threshold for various external indicators. Mr. Speaker, the attainment of Vision 2020 objectives and on time will continue to be the main focus of government intervention in the years to come, through which we will maintain and encourage fiscal prudence and place the country on a sustainable trajectory towards inclusive growth. As part of ongoing public financial management reforms, government will implement a medium-term expenditure framework, MTEF, which will have a significant impact on our budget formulation process, given that MTEF integrates policy, planning, and budgeting within a medium-term perspective. MTEF is currently being piloted at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, and will be rolled out to other ministries in 2014. The government also continues to explore more avenues to increase revenue collection to finance our medium and long-term priorities. The VAT, whose main aim is to broaden the tax base and simplify the tax system for improved compliance, was introduced in January 2013 to replace the sales tax. Mr. Speaker, this brings us to trade, industry, regional integration, and employment. Trade, industry, regional integration, and employment. Mr. Speaker, in this sector, further reforms will be pursued to improve the business and trading environment and promote investment for private sector development and enhance consumer welfare. Part of these reforms will be tied to a new legal methodology bill to replace the current Weights and Measures Act of 1977 and a consumer protection legislation, both of which will be presented to the National Assembly in 2013 for enactment. While the legal metrology bill seeks to strengthen the regulation of weights and measures in trade and extend the scope of legal metrology to cover the regulation of measuring devices, the Consumer Protection Bill will complement government's efforts in creating a more predictable business environment while enhancing consumer protection. This bill will strengthen consumer rights to safe and quality goods and services, as well as ensure that goods sold in the Gambia comply with both domestic and international standards. For effective implementation of these legislations, government will adequately strengthen the implementing and enforcement agencies. To define and strengthen the national quality infrastructure, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Regional Integration and Employment has been working on the development of a national quality policy, otherwise known as NQP. With support from the West Africa Quality Program, the draft NQP was developed and validated in November 2012. This will be presented soon to Cabinet for consideration. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the attainment of Vision 2020 strategies, the Minister of Trade completed the formulation of a medium-term plan, 2013 to 2016, and a national export strategy, 2013 to 2017, in 2012. Both are designed to give the ministry a more focused approach to service delivery. These two strategic documents contain well-defined strategies that will contribute to growth and employment through the promotion of investment in the productive sectors, provision of business development services, and facilitation of the development of micro, small, and medium enterprises. In the area of investment promotion, the GAIPA regulations were developed and gazetted in 2012. This has helped to establish an investment monitoring committee mandated to award fiscal incentives to special investment certificate holders and monitor beneficiary projects. As part of efforts geared towards developing Gambian businesses, the ministry, in collaboration with GAIPA, secured $2.3 million United States from the Enhanced Integrated Framework Trust Fund in February 2012 for the Sector Competitiveness and Export Diversification Project. The implementation of this 3-year project started in June 2012 and will provide specific support for cashew, granules, and sesame subsectors through product diversification, value addition, and quality enhancement. The project will also establish a functional trade information center at the Ministry of Trade to enhance access to trade information. To strengthen sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the Ministry of Trade requested and obtained the support of the Standard Trade Development Facility, STDF, of the WTO in March 2012 to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the National Plant Protection System, as well as develop a project proposal to strengthen it. The implementation of this project from STDF is expected to start in the first quarter of 2013. The implementation of the Growth and Competitiveness Project is also in progress. Under the component for the improvement of the business environment, the contract for the design of the business and collateral registry system, scheduled to last from September 2012 to June 2013, has been awarded. This component will establish a single window for business registration and improve tax administration to reduce costs and delays in starting up businesses in the Gambia. One of the reasons for the one window is for us to be able to trace whoever asks an investor for 20% or 10% on his own. This has been a problem before, and we don't want it to be a recurrent problem. When they want to kill a project or discourage an investor, they ask for a percentage and discourage the investor. So if the investor complains to me that he was asked 20% or 10% or 1%, I will know exactly who, so I don't need to use the police or the NIA to find out who. And that is why the window. So whoever sits at the window better watch out. Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, convinced that it is one of the surest ways to ensure mobility from our current level to a middle-income economy, my government would not relent in the quest to make this nation self-sufficient in agricultural production. In this regard, as I have always emphasized, it is imperative for Gambians and non-Gambians in this country to go back to the land and grow what we eat. Honorable Speaker, the main thrust of my government's agenda in this important sector continues to be the attainment of not only food self-sufficiency, but also becoming a major player in the agricultural exports market. This is a sector that has the greatest potential to provide employment for hundreds of thousands of people across all walks of life in this country, and thus has the capacity to eradicate poverty in all its manifestations, of course, except self-inflicted poverty. When you sit down and you want to be rich, you don't want to sweat. That is one form of poverty that nobody can eradicate but yourself. In the continuous effort to modernize this sector, government is embarking on crucial projects such as the National Agricultural Land and Water Management Development Project, funded by the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and the GAFS project, worth $64 million and $28 million respectively. The $64 million National Agricultural Land and Water Management Development Project, NEMA, was launched recently. This 7-year project is co-financed by IFAD, the Islamic Development Bank, and the Gambia government. It is the largest and most ambitious agricultural project ever to be implemented in the Gambia, and will take an integrated approach to the development of both rice and vegetable value chains. The project targets all the regions of the country and links neatly with the Gambia National Agricultural Investment Plan 2011 to 2015. Another important project to be implemented soon is the Food and Agriculture Sector Support Development Project, also financed with a grant of $28 million United States dollars through the Global Agriculture Food Security Program. Its implementation will spread over 15 years in West Coast region, Lower River, and other regions, and will target 240,000 people in the target areas, that is 150,000 women, 60,000 youth, and 30,000 men for obvious reasons. Mr. Speaker, with a collective investment of $92 million United States dollars, NEMA and FASDEP will contribute 32.62% of the US $282 million estimated base cost of the National Agriculture Investment Plan. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, through the Ministry of Agriculture and in collaboration with the Taiwanese Agricultural Mission, government is continuing with the cultivation of about 400,000 hectares of rice over a period of 5 years beginning 2009. The objective is that even with an output of 1 ton of rice per hectare, we will have the potential to produce more than we can consume and subsequently explore the export market. Therefore, our wish for food self-sufficiency is within reach. But in addition to that, It's our plan to avoid depending entirely on rain-fed agricultural production. That being the case, we have another component which will be the utilization of groundwater and of course the harvesting of rainwater to ensure that agricultural production is not dependent on rain or tidal irrigation. That being the case, we have worked on an ambitious project and with John Deere Company, we are going to make West Coast region and maybe Lower River region as well an all-year agricultural production zone. We want to make these two areas a green agricultural zone throughout the year by ensuring irrigation systems that are cost-effective and based on solar. So by 2015, we will not, by the grace of the Almighty Allah, import rice from anybody, except if you want a specific type of rice based on what you need, because some people prefer rice imported because it's Uncle Ben's. But I can assure you that we can produce all varieties of rice in this country because it has been carried out before. Even basmati and even jasmine rice can grow very well in the Gambia. But it's a matter of choice. That brings us to tourism and culture. Mr. Speaker, the year 2012 was an eventful year for the tourism sector, as it witnessed significant improvement in air access, resulting in the introduction of new flights, notably by Air Europa and African European Express from Madrid and Barcelona respectively, Corendon from Holland, and Binta Canaria from the Canary Islands. Equally important was the start of operations by the Gambia Bird Airline, a Gambian-German collaborative effort that now links Banjul with Spain, London, and several West African destinations. Coupled with aggressive destination marketing within the sector, these developments have resulted in an unprecedented surge in tourist arrivals. In all, there was a 51% increase in tourist arrivals in 2012 compared to the previous year. Mr. Speaker, conversely, the destination continues to grapple with the challenges of providing adequate quality accommodation to tourists, in view of the fact that several of our two-star hotels have not met international standards. In this respect, a number of hotel projects have been proposed to improve the bed stock capacity within the tourism sector. In addition, plans are afoot with Corendon Airlines, the World Bank, and the private sector to upgrade 7 two-star hotels into 3-star hotels. It is hoped that these measures will not only increase employment and revenue significantly, but also augment the accommodation capacity in the country. The recent transformation of the Gambia Hotel School into the Gambia Tourism and Hospitality Institute, offering diploma and higher national diploma programs in tourism and hospitality, which are to be aligned with the University of the Gambia's degree programs in tourism, will eventually meet the varied human resources needs of the Gambia's tourism sector. In this regard, my government is indebted to the Spanish government for providing the financial resources to build new infrastructure for the institute. In the area of culture, arrangements are underway to institute a collecting society for the Gambia, which will seek to collect royalties on behalf of Gambian artists. In this regard, the past year saw the formation of various associations by artists and producers for the actualization of the collecting society. The construction of a Kankurang Center at Tinjang Sita in Janjambure, which is being established with UNESCO's assistance and the Gambia Tourism Board, by virtue of the proclamation of the Kankurang as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity, will be completed by the end of June 2013. In the same vein, a new museum is being established at Fort Bullen in Barra through assistance from the British High Commission. This is expected to be completed by the end of the first quarter of 2013. Government is still pursuing the construction of a multi-purpose national theater, and vigorous efforts will be made during this year to obtain funding for this much-needed facility. Mr. Speaker, my government will scale up cultural preservation, promotion and development, as well as encourage intercultural dialogue and the promotion of cultural diversity as enshrined in such protocols as the African Cultural Charter, the Charter for African Cultural Renaissance, and the UNESCO Conventions on Cultural Heritage and Diversity. With culture, we come to health and social welfare. Mr. Speaker, this sector will continue to rank high on government's development agenda, given its ramifications for meaningful socio-economic development. With over 85% of the population now having easy access to healthcare within 5 kilometers of a health facility, and the opening of new reproductive and child care outreach stations across the country, the quality of life and productivity of the populace continue to improve. Mr. Speaker, the sector's overarching objective is to promote wellness, which is reflected by low incidence of mortality and morbidity, especially amongst women and children. Therefore, government will not relent in expanding access to healthcare across the country. In fact, as a matter of urgency, efforts are underway to formulate a country-led compact strategic plan to implement activities that will enable attainment of the national health policy objectives. Mr. Speaker, government recognizes the importance of accurate data and statistics in healthcare delivery and planning. In this regard, a demographic and health survey was undertaken in 2012 to enable updating and generating current and additional vital health statistics. Mr. Speaker, with the maternity mortality ratio falling, the Gambia is making steady progress towards the achievement of MDG 4, child mortality, MDG 5, maternal health, and MDG 6, reversal of communicable diseases, including HIV/AIDS, by 2015. On the control of malaria, indoor residual spraying of households started in 2008 and now has 89% coverage. This is one of the vector control strategies targeting malaria-carrying Anopheles mosquitoes. On HIV and AIDS, government will continue its efforts to reduce the prevalence of the disease by increasing support and care to those infected and reinforcing advocacy to prevent new infections. There are 10 antiretroviral treatment centers, ART, in the country, providing ARVs and opportunistic infections medicines free of charge to people living with HIV. On behalf of the government, I thank our development partners, such as the Global Fund, for complementing our efforts in this area. ARVs are available free of charge and in abundance. But the best ARV is prevention. Mr. Speaker, immunization coverage for most of the antigens exceeds 90%, and huge successes have been registered with regard to polio, malaria, and tuberculosis treatment. We will be relentless in our efforts to improve service delivery at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital as the major referral hospital in the country. Well, the Edward Francis Small Hospital, Teaching Hospital, is not a new hospital. We decided that since we have been independent for 48 years, the Royal Victoria does not stand a chance again. So we decided to name it after a Gambian who fought for our independence, who was the pioneer of those who are fighting for independence, not only for the Gambia, but for Africa. Unfortunately, very little is known about this patriotic gentleman whose great contribution to our independence today has never been rewarded. So we decided to change from Royal Victoria to Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. So now it's no longer RVTH, but it's EFSTH. To this end, there will be a modest increase in service charges at the EFSTH hospital, which will still make our healthcare service the cheapest in the sub-region. Don't panic, it's $5, so we may increase it to $10 or $20. Remembering that the cost of Medicare is going up, we are trying to subsidize as much as possible to make so, we want to make it as less expensive as possible. Whatever increment we make, we will still be the cheapest, not only in the sub-region, but in the whole world, except in communist countries where treatment was free. I will not name the countries, but we know. Mr. Speaker, to retain staff as a means of sustaining excellence in the health sector, we will implement various schemes shortly, targeting public health care providers, and further to this, vigorous training and retraining of various cadres of health personnel, such as doctors, nurses, public health, and other allied health workers, is being accelerated to address health-related matters for all segments of our society. The problem we have in this sector is the brain drain, especially within the nursing cadre. By the time they are at their third year at the School of Nursing, the addresses are known elsewhere, they have telephones to call, and they are offered jobs outside of this country. Well, this world is for people to travel and find greener pastures. But it is not fair that we use our meager resources to train, and then a wealthy country offers them a greener pasture and take them away from us. But this is a challenge that the movement of people is a fundamental human right. Allah created this world for people to travel easily. The only place that Allah didn't want everybody to go there is the top of Mount Everest. For whatever reason we don't know. And that is why if you plan to go there, you have to struggle for years, and most of the time you fail, because God doesn't want everybody there. There is only selected few go there. But the rest of the world, we are bound to travel. We travel to Africa for 100 years. We will also travel to Europe 500 years. Because if we add 25% interest for your stay. So let us be patient. Maybe in another 1,000 years, the trend will reverse. That is how God created this world. Adam and Eve were created elsewhere, at one place. And then Allah told them, I've created the world for you to travel. God knows what race Adam and Eve belong to. And so we have black, white, red, and green, and whatever. And they travel around the world. And God decided that the world has different regions. And so, if here we are sweating, elsewhere they will be putting the heater on. So if I'm fed up with the heat, I can go elsewhere where I will need a heater to keep me warm. That's a fundamental human right. Unfortunately, some people don't accept that. Where it concerns criminals is understandable. But not every immigrant is a criminal. But coming back to this point, if you cannot accept others, all other people, then it is unfair to accept only trained Africans that are trained at the expense of the countries. This is definitely unfair. You have enough money, train more human resources that you need for your countries, rather than poaching it from Africa because it's more cost effective to offer a greener pasture. But also those who take the bait of greener pastures, remember that there are seasons. If one day the greener pasture comes brown, don't come back to the Gambia. Because if you come, we will send you to the most brown part of the country where you start your pasture until it is green. Well, that's the reality. You cannot eat with both hands at the same time. So you either eat with your left hand, right hand, and if it has a problem, you'll be obliged to eat with the left hand. So don't expect that after staying in the greener pasture for 20 years, you come and write to my office and say, I'm back home, I'm available. I'll tell you, thank you, but those who have been available and reliable are the ones who stayed in this country. We still have such letters. I am around and available, I offer my services. I've been out of the country for 20 years, 15 years. I say, thank you very much for this information. Now, that being the case, I don't care what your qualifications are. I will deal with the people who struggle with me under the brown pasture. This country will become a very green pasture before 2015, very green for that matter. And so if you leave us, when you come back, we know where to assign you. Mr. Speaker, this is still relates to health. We still have a major problem in the health sector. In fact, I'll tell a story of somebody I sponsored from primary school to senior secondary school and to medical school. The guy is one of the, I can call him a genius, in one of the biggest, most intelligent personnel and students in Africa. Throughout his courses, from primary school to senior secondary school to medical school, he has never gone below A+. Then we sent him to an outside country for specialization. But the boy is like a son to me. And before he went, I know what was going to happen. So I told him that he should swear before me that no matter what greener pastures they give him, he should remember that the brown Gambian pasture is what sent him to school, and he must come back and make it green. So he told me that I don't need to swear. I don't need to tell you, but I will swear to convince you. As he was about to hold the Quran, I told him, that's enough. Allah pays you for the intention. I'm convinced. He went, after 2 years, they started offering him citizenship. He called me and they told him that they can, despite the fact that he was fully funded, we pay everything up front to the school. They decided to offer him a house. It's a long story anyway. But the bottom line of it is that when they realized that he was supposed to come for, when he comes for holidays, they send him to a particular place. So I asked him, why are you not working at the RBTH? That. He said, oh, they told me to work at a particular place. I told him, okay, that's good. Well, I'm not naming any country, but if you name any country in your mind, that's your problem. Then I realized that there was something going on. So I told him, next time you come, tell them that you are working at your dad's hospital, and that is RBTH. So I said, okay, he came. He worked there. The fourth year, they will not allow him to come because they were holding his passport. So, okay, don't worry, stay. All we want is for you to graduate. He graduated with distinction. Then, now they will not let him come. They are offering him all sorts of things, and even questioning him, why would you go back to Gambia, a country that is violating human rights? I looked at the guy in his face and told him, look, my dad is the president. And then the guy said, well, how old are you? I said, I'm 28. And how old is the president of the Gambia? I said, well, everybody knows his age. So how is he your dad? He said, well, this is African tradition. He's my dad. In Africa, he's my dad. He took care of me throughout, and he's my adopted dad. Say, oh, why would you worry about an adopted dad when you can earn better? What we can pay you here, you can. It became a problem for the guy to come home. I said, okay, simple. I called the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I called the ambassador or commissioner or whatever it is. I won't tell you specifically what the rank is, then you will know. I said, you know what? I called him on a secret line and I told him, just go to our mission. A mission is a mission. It could be a high commission, it could be an embassy, right? And let them give you an emergency passport. We already paid for the air ticket. It was already at the mission. And I told him, don't worry about your baggages, leave them there. When you come, I'll refund you. This is how he came. He came and then somebody saw him at the advert. What are you doing here? The guy said, I'm home. And he said, how? He said, I went there, I came, he said, but where's your passport? He said, I don't need a passport to come home. He said, how did you pass immigration? He said, you better go and ask your immigration, since they are very effective. So I told the boy, you are not even going to this country for even holidays. Can you imagine, we paid everything and they don't want him to leave because he's a genius. And this is what Africans suffer when we use our meager resources to train Africans in some institutions. If they excel, there is the 99.9% likelihood that they will not come back home. This is unfair. But anyway, we will still do our best. Still people will go, those who want greener pastures, but they should remember that there are always seasons. When the greener pasture turns brown, don't look back at our green pasture, because Gambia will be a very green pasture in 3 years or even less than 3 years from now. I know why I'm saying so. So when you want to come back, you tell you, no, stay there. You wait for another season of greener pasture. And you may have to wait there for another 5,000 years. Mr. Speaker, the construction of a 1,111 beds ultra-modern hospital to commence in the very near future would boost our fight against HIV and AIDS, malaria and tuberculosis, as well as other diseases like asthma, diabetes, infertility, hypertension, and others. This hospital is expected to be operational in 2015 or 2016 by the grace of the Almighty Allah. In order to enhance health, people have to be educated. And so this brings us to basic and secondary education, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, education, especially at the basic level, remains a top priority on my government's development agenda. Following the successful revision of the education policy 2004-2015, a sector-wide education strategic plan has now been prepared. Government will incorporate a significant part of the cost associated with basic and secondary education in its regular budget to cover the current costs, while engaging genuine development partners for possible funding of the financial gap. In the interim, to reduce the cost burden of education on households, grants based on student enrollment will be provided to all public lower basic schools with effect from September 2013. This will root out unauthorized levies on students in public schools from the 2013-14 academic year. In pursuit of creating equal opportunity and equitable access to education, 10 new sites in underserved communities will be provided with multi-grade classrooms to cater for the young children who otherwise would have had to travel more than 3 kilometers to go to school. When we were in primary school, we were meters to go to school. When we were in primary school, we were traveling 7 kilometers a day to Bia. I don't want anybody to travel in for 2 kilometers. This is my objective, and by the grace of the Almighty Allah, there will come a time when no student will travel 1 kilometer to go to school unless if the town is too big. To bolster enrollment, the education sector will increase the number of communities with customized donkey carts next academic year. This will add to the 1,842 children that are currently transported on a daily basis to their respective schools through this innovative means of transportation. Let me not be misconstrued as trying to introduce donkey carts in all the schools of the country. But you understand that there are communities where roads are not even good, vehicles cannot be used, and so it is also cost effective to use a means of transport that does not require fuel. A typical case in point is the fact that all the greater Banjul areas, most of the greater Banjul area schools were donated buses. Most of the buses are off the road not because of mechanical problems, but because the schools cannot afford the fuel. So we are looking at a more innovative, cost-effective way of transporting children. And of course, bicycles also are being used extensively, but we want to make sure that the use of donkey carts is encouraged, but I'm more convinced with the use of bicycles. So bicycles and donkey carts would be encouraged in the provinces, and in some urban areas in the provinces we will use school buses where it is prudent. Mr. Speaker, improving the quality of teaching and learning is the most urgent and important priority for my government. It is one thing to give education, it is another for it to be quality education. And whatever service my government provides to the public, it must be quality service to the people. And therefore education for all would be quality education for all and not cheap education for all. Thus, early grade mathematics assessment, EGMA, will be introduced in May 2013 to support the teaching and learning of mathematics in our schools, as well as reinforce and supplement the already successful early grade reading interventions. Why mathematics? Because strangely enough, this is one subject where people find, most of the students find it challenging. But also if you want to become a lawyer, I don't know why mathematics is a requirement in this country. And so scientists, we cannot also train people in science and technology without mathematics. And that is why we are giving it a priority. For the first time in the history of education in the Gambia, The teaching and learning of French will be carried out using locally produced materials depicting the Gambian culture and context. This is an outcome of our collaboration with the French technical assistants in the Gambia. Higher education, research, science and technology. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology will continue to deliver its core mandate of coordinating, facilitating, and monitoring the provision of quality tertiary and higher education and the promotion of science, technology, and innovation agenda in order to transform the Gambia into an economic superpower. The University of the Gambia, UTG, Gambia College, Management Development Institute, MDI, and the Gambia Technical Training Institute, GTTI, continue to play a pivotal role in addressing the skills and competency gaps in both the public and private sectors. This is evidenced by the increase in the enrollment rates and the introduction of new programs. Key objectives of these developments are to reduce the dependency on overseas university education and to respond to our capacity gaps by addressing our specific national human resource capacity requirements. Pertaining to the physical structures of the university, a consultant will be contracted soon for the UTG Faraba Banta campus project, and works will commence as soon as the stakeholder consultations and review of the project design are finalized. Mr. Speaker, the higher education sector needs a legal framework to regulate the provision of tertiary and higher education in the country. Because we have seen a mushrooming of universities, colleges, and institutes on a daily basis. And I always call the Minister of Basic Education to inquire whether these universities and colleges and institutes have got the requirements and they are clearly vetted and authorized to operate. Now, today I saw on the Observer a Gambian has distinction at a university. The name of the university sounds like a well-known university in UK. And it attracted my attention to say, who is this Gambian that has excelled in UK? I like it when Gambians excel in UK for obvious reasons. I read it only to realize that the university is in Bakau. So I called the editor-in-chief of the Observer and said, did he make a mistake? He said, actually, yes, the university is in Bakau. I said, where in Bakau? But anyway, these are the sort of things. So I called the Minister of Education and I told him, well, this university is supposed to be in the UK. What is it doing in Bakau? And when was it established? And I'm not even aware of that. He said, oh, it has been there for a while. I said, what do you mean it has been there for a while? So I became worried. Then I saw, immediately after that, one university, one college after the other. So I called her attention again. I also called the Minister of Higher Education, Science, Research and Technology and told them, look, we have to regularize it. But we realized that when we want to close a school, there may not be legal basis for you to close it. And so, in the absence of legislation, you cannot call an establishment illegal if there is no legal framework that says this is what is legal and this is what is not illegal. Am I right, my learned lordships? So we found ourselves in a technical catch where if we close a school and we are challenged in a court of law, it will be very difficult. So this is the reason why we have this legal framework for the establishment of universities, colleges, and institutions of higher education in this country. Responding to the much needed skills training to address the dearth of skilled technicians necessary for national development, The Ndemba Skills Center will become operational in 2014. The construction of phase 1 of this ultra-modern skills center, comprising the administrative building, perimeter fence, and a borehole, is complete, and these have been handed over to the ministry. The Armed Forces and Security Services Engineering Corps would implement phase 2. The Julangel Skills Center will be revived this year as well. This will entail construction of classrooms, staff quarters, and student dormitories, as well as provision of equipment and furniture. This project is to be funded by the Social Development Fund to the tune of 40 million Gambian dollars. Works, construction, and infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, in recognition of the need for proper infrastructure to enhance rapid socio-economic development, government will continue to develop public infrastructure, notwithstanding the tremendous progress in this area since 1994. Against all odds, I'm happy to say that the construction of the new National Assembly is progressing steadily, despite the hitches we had. The government of India has responded positively to our request for a second line of credit. In consequence of this, the contractor is expected to complete the project by November 2013. Our road network continues to improve, thus easing communication and improving our socioeconomic status. The completion of the Mandinaba-Soma Road, which is in progress, will link Banjul to Basse on the south bank. On the north bank, the Lamenkoto-Pasema stretch on the north bank is still undeveloped, but my government remains committed to securing the necessary funding for its development. By the grace of the Almighty Allah, that stretch of the road, as it is now, would be history by 2015 by the grace of the Almighty Allah. We want to make sure that throughout the country we have ultra-modern road network. The plan is to ensure that the entire north bank of the Gambia is connected by a single stretch road. For the Brikama Daslame Marakisa Dimbaya road, funding has been secured and works have begun. The financing agreement for the construction of the Trans-Gambia Bridge was signed in June 2012 and ratified by the National Assembly. Recruitment of a consultant for the project has commenced, and the completion of this work will have a tremendous impact on movement. Relative to feeder roads, several studies are in progress for appropriate interventions in various parts of the country. These include works on a priority list of roads in Fonyi, Kansala, and Kiang West. The process for the feasibility study and detailed design for the improvement of the stormwater and sewage system in the Greater Banjul area project is at an advanced stage. Also, following the contract for the rehabilitation of Bond Road signed with Corporate Construction Enterprises in April 2012, work is now in progress. The rehabilitation of Sting Corner is equally ongoing. Contracts have been signed for the maintenance of roads in Banjul and the Kanifi municipality, and plans are at an advanced stage to upgrade road works in Banjul from asphalt to concrete surfacing. This is due to the fact that every 2 years we have to spend money to rehabilitate Banjul roads due to the high water table. We are advised by engineers that the best solution, the lasting solution to this would be concrete surfacing. Mr. Speaker, on air transport, the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority continues to improve facilities at the Banjul International Airport to maintain its international positive rating. Phase 1 of the airport improvement project has now been completed. This phase included the upgrading of the runway, airfield ground lighting system, and the complete overlay of the entire runway, which has a total length of 3,600 meters, thus making it one of the longest runways in Africa. Designs and drawings of the various components of Phase 2 have been finalized, and works will commence within the next few months. Once completed, it will cater for the expansion of the apron and construction of a state-of-the-art fire and rescue station to provide aerodrome category 9. The current instrument landing systems, otherwise called ILS, which is one of the most important navigational aids at Banjul International Airport, will be replaced. The new one will be upgraded to a dual system for both runway ends. Mr. Speaker, the Gambia Civil Aviation Authority is in the process of setting up an aviation academy that will be linked to the University of the Gambia. The need for an aviation school is even more pronounced considering the lack of aviation education facilities in the country. We also learned that aviation courses are very, very expensive. We tried an African country, and the minimum we should pay per annum to a student is 50,000 United States dollars. So to be cost effective, we better spend a lot of money, set up the aviation school, the same way we did with the law school and the medical school, so that we can train them on the pastures that they are familiar with, the Gambian pasture. Then there will be no temptation to leave for another pasture that they have not seen. Mr. Speaker, with regard to sea transport, let me disclose that in their quest for excellent service delivery, and due to the unprecedented increase in cargo throughput experienced in 2011, the Gambia Ports Authority, GPA, responded by procuring additional fleet of cargo handling equipment in 2012. The authority acquired one Hyster empty container handler, 2 Kalmar Ridge stackers in May 2012, and 4 Murphy tractors and 4 trailers in July 2012. During the course of the year, the authority will also acquire 2 more Kalmar Ridge stackers and 4 Murphy tractors to add to the existing fleet. The GPA continues to engage bilateral and multilateral funding agencies for favorable terms and conditions for the expansion and upgrading of the Banjul port. The port expansion project will embody paving the acquired half-die area into a new container terminal and the rehabilitation of the north and south terminals, as well as the Banjul new jetty. The accomplishment of this project is a key activity in accommodating the already increasing cargo traffic. Mr. Speaker, the ferry services remain a challenge, but by the grace of the Almighty Allah, we will overcome, as efforts are being made to address the constraints in this area. In this regard, we are grateful to the government and people of Taiwan for providing a grant to procure new engines for the Banjul Bara ferries. These engines are being assembled abroad for delivery soon. Talking about road infrastructure, one thing comes to mind. We want people to travel easily, but we also want to make sure that they travel safely. And I'm really concerned about the spate of fatal, reckless accidents that plague our roads. I will urge the Ministry of Interior to really beef up and enforce the Motor Traffic Act. Many a time, drivers overspeed and they kill people deliberately. This is unacceptable. Also, stringent measures must be made with regards to testing. Not only testing a vehicle before it is registered, but also testing the qualification of the driver. Many a time you see an apprentice on a truck 1 year, the next year you see him driving a tractor, driving a taxi. And most of the time they are not being tested. So I think we will also institutionalize driving schools so that other people that driving school can be issued driving licenses. I used to see a poster before when we were younger, which normally says, drive carefully because the life you save may be your own. These things are no longer there. And so some of the Silobula who think that they can just earn their fish money by standing at a point and collecting money, they don't care whether the driver has a license or not. What they care is what the driver can give them. You think you are endangering people's life? A reckless driver can also knock you off your post, illegal post, and kill you. So remember that you are endangering your own life. So, for the fear of Allah and for the sake of our children and everybody in this country, be honest enough to make sure that if somebody doesn't have a license, take him to court for that. And also, don't issue license based on notes sent by a minister or the president. A note from me doesn't make the person a qualified driver. You have to test him. That is what the laws of this country say. So, the IGP is here. The Minister of Interior is here. Just last Monday, I went early morning to somewhere. I went at 4 a.m. I found 4 checkpoints. As soon as they realized it was my convoy, they ran into the bush. Fortunately, I think you got the names of 2 or 3 that were so panicked that they decided to hide behind a tree. And I saw them, I called the last vehicle to pick them up and hand them over to the police. There were no reflectors. They were not wearing any reflector. And I asked the security to ask them whether they have a diary. How can you want a traffic checkpoint looking for criminals and you don't even have a notebook? I asked them to search the guy. It's a long story. We have a long way to go. But I'm warning the police. And the IGP is here, the Minister of Interior is here. We are going to clean the police, but not using Operation Bulldozer. We are going to use Operation Odosavel Stain Remover to clean the police. Don't laugh, I'm dead serious. Because a lot of accidents also happen in the corners, and people are not taken to court because they bribe. This is unacceptable. And when you ask them, they say, oh, the army and other security agencies have more income. That is not true. But you want to compare yourself to a soldier who's taking his life for the country. Now, this is a democratic country. Whether you agree with me or not, that is your problem. If the salary is small, leave the service and go and find a big salary. Nobody is compelled. This is not a conscript police force or a conscript army. If the salary is small, resign. There is a provision for you to leave the service. Leave the service and go and look for a bigger salary. But to take it from drivers at the expense of safety, this is unacceptable. Just imagine, they didn't expect me to leave at that time of the night, and they didn't also expect me to use that road. 5 checkpoints. Unfortunately, we were able to get only 2, the rest they disappeared. And unfortunately, there was nothing to know who placed the sign there. So what I did was, I told them to collect the traffic signs, and then we will ask the IGP to go around and see where a road traffic sign, checkpoint sign is missing at the police station. All the police stations responded. We sent another team also to go around. They said they have the checkpoint signboards intact. So which means this particular group of policemen must have made this stop signs, and the fact that they are not even reflecting shows that they are meant for illegal purpose. And I urge Gambians not to stop at any checkpoint where the policemen are not wearing their numbers, how do you call it, regimental numbers, and they don't have reflectors. If you stop and see that the policeman is not regular, arrest him. Yes, Oh, the law, my landed laws are here. The laws of the Gambia allow any good citizen to arrest any offender. So even if the IGP is seen committing an offense, a student can arrest him and hand him over to the police. Maybe they say, are you sick? He's the IG, but he committed an offense. So nobody's above the law. So if you go to a checkpoint, and there's only one, and also it's not normal that you have one person at a checkpoint at night. If you slow down, you stop and realize that it's one person, pass. It's not safe, it could be a criminal. When you pass, your duty is to report to the next police station and tell them that I've passed a checkpoint with only one person, so can you go and find out where he's from? Don't stop at night at a checkpoint manned by one person without reflectors, and because he's wearing a police uniform. Well, the fact that he's not even carrying his regimental number tells you that he is up to no good. If they can stop my vehicle, and when the siren went up, they disappeared. The mistake we made was, we put up the siren for the greater part of the journey, but decided to put it on. That was the biggest mistake, and that's how 3 other checkpoints disappeared. But I'll cut them, because I can go out at any time. So, the improvement of the roads does not mean that there should be an increase in fatal or even traffic accident. But it's not the roads. The problem is enforcement, because the laws are there. Also, we have to review the law. And you take a driver to court, and he's fined $5 because that is what is in the MTA, the Motor Traffic Act. And so the policeman will realize that even the charge sheet costs more than the amount he is fined, but it is what is in the law. So we also have to, because the rationale behind any law is to discourage people violating it. And so we'll have to look at the traffic laws again and reinforce them. But more important is reinforcement. And before you have Operation Omo or Other Savel, clean your place. I've been warning you, and then we signed an agreement, a ceasefire agreement, which has been violated 7 times. The 8th time you will have your place inundated with detergents. So I'm warning you, in depot they say, warning before wounded. So the police, Minister of Interior, you better tighten your belts. This is unacceptable. There are also instances where complainants have become accused persons because the one they are complaining against is wealthy. This is unacceptable. I know what is going on. And I have more than 10,000 people to employ in the police force within 1 year. So, it's up to your people to change their ways, or they'll be forced to look for a job. We are not going to compromise on this. Violent crime is on the increase. Most of the people are traffic police officers. We used to have in Banjul what we call the beat system. We used to have patrols all the time, all over Banjul. Now the only patrol you see is a traffic checkpoint. With so many police stations and the crime is on the increase, this is unacceptable. But I'll come to your area. But good roads do not mean reckless drivers and a high frequency of fatal accidents. This brings us to petroleum. Mr. Speaker, on petroleum matters, we shall continue to provide an enabling environment to attract foreign direct investment in the sector, while encouraging the indigenous participation in the petroleum sector, especially in the downstream sector. Currently, 4 offshore blocks and 1 onshore block have been licensed. One of the offshore exploration, on the offshore exploration, African Petroleum, the licensee of block A, A1 and A4, are required to drill an exploration well in 2013. In their plan towards drilling, the company has already conducted an environmental impact assessment and an oil spill contingency plan. A helicopter hangar has been constructed at the Banjul International Airport for use to transport crew to and from base to the rig. With regard to offshore blocks A1 and A5, the licensee, Kamak Energy, is carrying out a regional geological study and now preparing for a 3D survey. 3D survey means three-dimensional survey. This survey allows you to quantify, have a rough estimate of how much oil is there, and exactly where to drill in order to hit the oil. That is what a 3D survey allows the company to do. For the onshore, that is on land, the licensee, Oranto Petroleum, has also completed a regional geological study and aeromagnetic survey as per the license requirement for block Lower River region, and are in the process of moving on to the second exploration phase. For the remaining offshore and onshore blocks, Block A3 and A6 offshore, and Block Upper River onshore, investors have shown interest and discussions are being held with them to secure their investment. The Gambian National Petroleum Company has successfully established and opened modern petroleum service stations in key growth centers such as Kanifing, Banjul, Brikama, Farafenye, Mansa Konko, and Basse. As part of its business plan, GNPC is constructing petroleum service stations across the country to improve access to petroleum products. In this year, 2 more stations will be inaugurated in Abuko and Bundunkakunda. Well, there are other developments also within the oil sector. But what I want to ask our Gambians, they will be wondering why it is taking so long for us to start exporting oil, which we have. I want to make sure that we will not be an oil-producing country and then still live with poverty. And so if you offer me 5% for 35 years, I tell you to go to hell. Because the oil belongs to us, I see no reason why. I will take 5% for what belongs to me and you take 95%. Also, I know the cost. I study a lot. I know the cost of a rig and to drill a well, and the cost of platforms. So if you spend, the maximum you can spend is 700 million, maximum on the worst case scenario, 700 million. If you produce, let's say 2,000 barrels a day, in 5 years you should be able to amortize your 700, in fact less than that. So why would I give you 35 years? So I can take 35% for 5 years, and after that I take the 65% and you take the 35. If you don't want it, leave. After all, the government also is committed to investing in the GNPC to carry out drilling. I will also not allow companies to sit on oil blocks. For some, you have renewed, you have extended the exploration period 1 or twice. There wouldn't be a third time. Also, we will not allow companies that come, acquire blocks, sit on it so that their stocks in the market go up. You cannot use my country for that. We give you a time frame, now we will be stricter. Within the first exploration phase, if you fail to deliver, that ends your license. Because we don't want anybody to, we don't want speculators in the oil industry. We are addressing that right now. But what is important is to tell you, because some people may come to this National Assembly and complain. Now, if the exploration phase is extended twice, there will be no third time. Irrespective of whether you have the rig starting to explore, you are not going to extend it. So, I know why I'm telling you that 2015, by the grace of the Almighty Allah, Gambia would be a very green pasture. but our visa requirements will also be very rare. So be patient, but let me also warn you, no matter what we produce and export, we will still have to grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Agriculture will never be secondary to any economic activity in this country. Let me make that very clear. That brings us to forestry and the environment. Mr. Speaker, on forestry and the environment, the Ministry of Environment, Parks and Wildlife and its line institutions have over the past year pursued policies and programs aimed at conserving, protecting and developing our valuable forest resources for sustainable national development and enhancing livelihoods. As a way of protecting our biodiversity, the Department of Parks and Wildlife Management has finalized and validated guidelines for private sector involvement in natural resource management. These guidelines will soon be disseminated to the public. The Ministry of Environment, Parks and Wildlife is in the process of reviewing the Biodiversity Wildlife Act. The proposed Wildlife Conservation Bill will be presented to this Legislative Assembly for consideration during the course of the 2013 legislative year. Mr. Speaker, turning to our living environment in general, my government is concerned about waste management. As a result, we have intensified efforts towards finding a solution to this challenge. A laudable effort in this connection is the initiation of Operation Clean the Nation, which has resulted in an increased awareness of the importance of a healthy and clean environment, free of litter and other refuse. Mr. Speaker, a significant threat to our environment is plastic waste. Hence, the NEA, National Environment Agency, together with other stakeholders, is seeking solutions to this menace. Furthermore, in line with the enforcement of the anti-littering regulations, the NEA and the judiciary will continue working together on the special environmental courts the Special Environmental Courts Initiative for speedy prosecution of environmental offenders, especially the deliberate and malicious dumping of domestic waste at non-dumping sites or near other people's homes at night. More stringent legislation and vigorous enforcement would be required to curb these very insane, infamous acts by antisocial, anti-development, and unpatriotic and evil elements of our society that are a threat to the well-being of the nation. People will say these are hard words, harsh words. But imagine cleaning your compound and at night decide to take it to somebody's compound gate at night and leave it there. What you are running from, you want somebody to suffer from it. That is wickedness, and it is unacceptable. And interestingly enough, the two municipal councils have municipal police. What is their use? Is it escorting officials at ceremonies or to ensure the anti-littering laws? So we will come back to the municipal police and address that issue also. Since they are also called police at the end, the same detergent we are using for the GPF is what we are going to use on the MP, municipal police. As you know, see what they are paid by taxpayers, and still littering is going on. I bought a piece of land in Banjul, and I demolished the old wretched bamboo building that was there. And overnight, it became a dumping ground. But what was interesting is, they say they dump at night. I assigned the police to get me the ones that dump at night. Since then, despite the fact that they are not there physically, it's stopped. Which means one of the policemen must have told those who are dumping that the president has assigned us to catch you. That's the reality. You don't have criminal activity, and when you inform the police, the criminal activity stops. So who is the criminal? I hope your inspectors are not inspectors by day and criminals by night. All that will be, you are laughing, but this is very serious. A lot of people have experience of that. You report of criminal activity, once you report to the police, it stops without the police being there. Or the criminals know that it was Jammeh who reported us to the police. So who is who? That is why I don't stop at a checkpoint at night manned by one policeman without a reflector. This has become a practice, and a very difficult practice to stop. People would take a vehicle, go far away. Now that you have a vehicle, well, don't you take it to the designated dump site? But you decide that you want to take it to another neighborhood and dump it there. This is the problem we have in Banjul with regards to the gutters. Whatever you sweep, instead of putting it at a dustbin, you decide to dump it into the drain and clog it. This is the problem we have. But now the new project is going to address those issues. But for your municipal police, if they are not functioning to enforce the anti-littering laws, we will not allow a police force that is ceremonial, because you are using taxpayers' money. Retire them, let them go and look for another job, or let them enforce the anti-littering law. That brings us to fisheries and water resources sector. Mr. Speaker, in the fisheries sector, government will reinforce its efforts to implement fisheries development projects and programs aimed at achieving the objectives of the MDGs and Vision 2020 through effective and sustainable development and management of our fisheries resources. In the area of artisanal fisheries, government, in collaboration with development partners, continues to provide fisheries infrastructural facilities, fishing-related equipment, and means for fish preservation and distribution throughout the country. In this regard, the Banjul Fisheries Jetty will, upon completion, in the near future be handed over to the Gambia Ports Authority for its operation and management. The Fisheries Jetty would enable licensed industrial fishing vessels to land their catches in the Gambia. This will create employment, increase fish landings, and enable local fishing companies to operate to full capacity. Also, the recently inaugurated Bakote Fish Market will soon commence operations. The fish market will further reduce post-harvest fish losses, create employment opportunities in the Kanifi municipality, especially for women, and make quality fish available to consumers. The word especially for women, unfortunately, has to be there, because you go to the beach or any fish processing center, the only Gambians you find there are women. You spend more than $25 million over the past 18 years to improve, $36 million to improve the fisheries sector, modernize it. Unfortunately, each time you go to Tanje or elsewhere, the fishermen that you find there are foreigners. And that is why you'll understand why, when there is magal, the price of fish goes up and the fish are scarce. And then they start saying, oh, nobody can touch fish these days. How can we eradicate poverty? You have not been to school. You don't want to be a farmer, you don't want to be a fisherman, you don't want to be a carpenter. What type of office would you have? Even God, the most merciful, Allah, the most merciful. If you don't do good in this world, He has one office for you, and that's hell. So who do you expect that the U.S. government to be? To employ you when you have no skills? That is unacceptable. You look at our markets. We spent a lot of money to improve our markets and modernize them. And apart from the body bunkers, the only Gambian, these are the only Gambians you find selling in our markets. The rest are foreigners. Yes, it's not derogatory. They are being patriotic. They are creating employment. It is very sad. And then you go to the beach, you find young people playing football instead of going to fish. All projects to encourage the youth to go into fishing have failed. Just between 2010 and 2012, I have spent personally nothing less than $15 million to enable youth groups to go into fishing. Many a time, I wouldn't mention their names, they'll come to me and say, no, this one is a very serious group. They vouch for them. You give them everything, only for one person to sell it and go to Spain. But the good thing is that 5 out of the groups, all the groups that have left, were deported within 3 months. I'm not going to take them to court, but they're here in town. This is the reward for dishonesty. So I've made up my mind that on no account would I sponsor any youth group without somebody being responsible for the group, so that if the items are sold, the one who recommended them would be held to account. It is disheartening. Would that discourage me? No, because there are still also others that are very, very patriotic and they are working hard. But unfortunately, the attitude has to change for us to be able to eradicate poverty in this country. Fishermen earn nothing less than 100,000 a week. The minimum they earn is 100,000. Nobody in this country, not even the president, earns 100,000 in a month. So, what is more honorable? To go fishing and you come back and then what they tell me is that when you go fishing, when you come back, your girlfriends run away from you. Let them run away, they don't love you. Because they know that the money they get from you is from the fish that you go and catch. What is more honorable? To go and catch fish and smell, if you take care of your body, you will not smell fish. And earn a decent living, or to pay 45,000 to 100,000 to human traffickers, they put you in a rickety boat only for you to end up in the middle of the Atlantic. I think the former is better. Let us work for ourselves, and then we are dignified. Only we, the people, can eradicate poverty from our homes. Nobody can do that. No matter what the government does, we will not go to everybody's home and eradicate poverty. That's not possible. But we can create the conducive environment. So where Gambians refuse to go, obviously the next would be foreigners. We welcome them because we are all part of humanity. No matter where you come from, if you want to participate in national development, you can benefit from a government project. Because this is what humanity is all about. This is what our religions teach us, that we are all human beings, descendants of Adam and Eve. So we still continue to build infrastructure for this fishery sector. But if Gambians decide not to go into the industry, we will, of course, the foreigners can make use of that and build our economy and build their economies as well. But our attitude has to really change. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, the rehabilitation works at Bintang, Tendaba, and Albreda Fish Landing sites have been completed, and the double surface 11-kilometer road access roads to Tendaba and Bintang will greatly ease the transportation of fish and fishery products from these sites. It is necessary to note that government sensitization of rural farmers raised the awareness of most Gambians of the need to diversify fish production methods to include aquaculture. Even aquaculture, if it were not for the Gambian women, the project would have died a long time ago. All these agricultural projects and fish projects, the fishery sector projects I'm talking about, the key players are women. Any government development project, if the women do not participate, it will fail the first day. I want to thank you, the Gambian women. So, agriculture was picking up. All of a sudden, unfortunately, the women also sometimes do not heed my advice. When you start making money, you look at a man and you call him the father of the association. Well, in Africa, you don't confront your father if he takes your money. And most of the time, you gather a lot of money and then the father decides to misuse it. You cannot prosecute him, and they say, pala. So you are encouraging this type of dishonesty. But the reality is that any development project by the government, if the women do not participate, it is bound to fail. Now, aquaculture is being taken over by the women in this country. And that is why for the Gambian women, I'm not talking about the sky, because when you fly in a plane, you go beyond the sky, you look at down. This space will be the limit. Also, as a result of initiative to encourage aquaculture, private initiatives have proliferated in recent years. The FAO TCP project for aquaculture being implemented in Central River region is strengthening the existing aquaculture research activities carried out by the Fisheries Department. Government provided funds in the 2012 and 2013 budget estimates for the expansion of aquaculture activities in other parts of the country, especially CRR North and URR. Sensitization of the communities to be selected has already started. Furthermore, the government of Japan is considering Gambia government's request for grant aid to construct fish markets and cold storage facilities in Soma, Bansang, Basse, and Farafenni. The objective of establishing this cold chain infrastructure is to reduce fish spoilage and provide quality fish to the consumers in the provinces. We are eternally grateful for the assistance that the Kingdom of Japan has been rendering to the development of artisanal fisheries in the Gambia through the provision of infrastructure and equipment for fish preservation and distribution. But not only that, Japan is one of very few countries that have been assisting not only the Gambia, but Africa and third world countries massively, and all our grants without any strings attached. We are grateful to Japan. Apart from the FAO, IFAD, and FAO, the biggest contributor to our agricultural success has been the government and people of Japan, for which we are eternally grateful. All the modern fisheries I'm talking about also is thanks to Japan. I think, in fact, in terms of the fisheries sector, only Japan has been assisting this country to achieve our objectives. On behalf of every Gambian and non-Gambian, because the major beneficiaries of these facilities are non-Gambians, but Africans and non-Africans as well, we say a great thank you to the Kingdom of Japan, the government and the people of Japan. Mr. Speaker, on weather, climate and water resources sector, the Department of Water Resources continues to ensure that Gambians, particularly those in rural areas, have access to safe drinking water and are provided with timely and accurate weather and climate information to safeguard communities and their livelihoods. Implementation of the African Development Bank funded rural water supply and sanitation project, whose main objective is to increase access to safe drinking water and improve sanitation in the rural areas of the Gambia, from the current level of about 70% to 72% for water supply, and from 40% to 44% for sanitation has started. The staff of the project have been appointed and logistics for its smooth implementation are in place. Beneficiary communities have been sensitized on the project, and the construction of all 80 new boreholes and household latrines will be implemented by December 2013. In this era of enhanced climate change, Mr. Speaker, extreme weather phenomena have continued to pose serious threats to the social stability and economic development of the Gambia, and more than ever before requires decision makers at all levels of society to consider climate risk reduction in their planning processes. As such, the project for strengthening of the Gambia's climate change early warning systems has undertaken the capacity building of local communities on climate change early warning systems in the North Bank region, West Coast region, the city of Banjul, and the Kanifing municipality. Since climate hazards are unalterable, the most effective tool to safeguard life and property is the provision of information on the impending weather through an early warning system. In the field of aviation safety, the Gambia is currently participating in the project for the cooperative development of aeronautical meteorology services in West Central Africa region called CODMET. This project seeks to establish a system aimed at enabling aeromet service providers in member states achieve compliance with international aviation safety standards in relation to the provision of timely, reliable, and accurate meteorological information to aviation users in an efficient manner. The project also seeks to enhance the capability of the state's regulatory authority in carrying out safety oversight of aeromet services through the adoption of a comprehensive approach. The coordinator of CODMET project is now in post and implementation has started. Mr. Speaker, internal security. All these developments and plans that we have in place cannot take place and cannot be sustainable without security. Mr. Speaker, on internal security and maintenance of law and order, the Gambia Police Force and the entire state apparatus will continue to be vigilant to combat crime and deter criminality in our society. Heinous crimes such as murder, rape, and drug trafficking will be confronted with the full force of the law. Mr. Speaker, in recent times, after the moratorium on execution was put in place, there has been a spate of gruesome murder cases which contravene the moratorium government had put on the execution of condemned murderers by the laws of our country. This situation, I can realize that everybody is looking at my face. It is not a pleasure to put anybody to death. But it is also not acceptable for anybody to eat your benachin and go and take somebody's life. Therefore, this situation is unacceptable and will lead to the moratorium being lifted without any further notice. Therefore, it behoves us all to continue to spread the virtue of nonviolence and the rule of law. Disputes should not be settled using brute force, which often leads to fatalities. Rather, we should seek peaceful resolution of disputes by where it is inevitable, resorting to law enforcement agencies and the law courts. Nobody has a right to settle a dispute with a machete, a knife, a broken bottle, or whatever device you use. But that being the case, we will also institute legislation to control the carrying of weapons or whatever nature in public. Because any young person, most young people that you find, if you search them, you find out that they have a knife in the pocket. Why do you need a knife? You are not a fisherman, you are not a funambulist. Why would To this end, I commend the security services for their vigilance, and of course, some patriotic citizens of this country who have also been providing vital information to the security agencies in our fight against drugs and violent crime. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to support the security forces to root out criminality in all its manifestations. Of course, underlined in all its manifestations, including criminals in uniform. In this regard, our law enforcement agents will be assisted by the long arm of our justice system. Criminals can run, but they will not be able to hide anywhere in this country again. Therefore, all hands must be on deck. People should emulate the practice of patriotic citizens who have taken upon themselves to report crime and help the fight against crime in all its manifestations. Well, let other services not think that the only culprits in crime are the police. We have seen incidents of drug trafficking in other security services, and they are also facing the law. Recently, there has been a court-martial for people that are engaged in trafficking drugs. The uniform is not a license to commit a crime. The uniform is a license to prevent crime. So if you think by the use of an armed forces vehicle and being in uniform, you carry drugs or commit any crime, you are also going to face the full force of military martial law in this country. So I can see that the Chief of Staff is sitting comfortably next to the IGP while he's being grilled, but the armed forces also have a big share to play, share in crime, which we are fighting on a daily basis. You know what is going on. So all manner of criminal behavior will not be tolerated, be it the police, the immigration. You find criminals everywhere. I know of people that look at a foreigner, especially a white person, and ask for a visa. If the visa is provided, they ask for alien card. How can somebody just come into the country have an alien card? They look around, nobody's around, they delay the person. He gives you 200 euros, you let him go without a receipt. I also want all those coming to this country, whether black or white, if any payment is required of you, ask for a receipt. If no receipt is given, demand your money or report to the nearest authority. Even at the airport, just report to the Director General of Civil Aviation and identify the person who collected money from you. It has also come to my notice that Gambians, when they come home, or come for holidays, are harassed at entry points. They bring mobile phones. You say you are going to tax them. Immigration, are you tax collectors? Or the NIA? What is your... There is no law in this country that limits the amount of gadgets you can bring for gifts. So if somebody brings 5 cell phones, you say it's too much. Who are you to decide whether it's too much for a gift? He can afford it. What is your problem? I can see a senior officer of the customs shaking his head. This is happening, and I'm telling you, the harassment of Gambians or any person at the airports or entry points must stop because they are giving the country a negative image. But what is even more unacceptable is the fact that Gambians hustle outside, and when they come to this country, we harass them. That is unacceptable. So, one thing you don't know is that I have people everywhere, and they know the number to call where such incidences happen. As opposed to what we are made to believe, I prefer to give a warning before I hit. Now, all of you are here. The police, the NIA, the army, the customs, the immigration, and the fire service. Most of the time, the fire service don't have any reports against them. Thank you, fire service. So now, why can't we be like them? They don't want traffic checkpoints. They are satisfied with their salary because they know that only selfless sacrifice can bring about the economic development that will give you the big salaries that you yearn for. Why can't we emulate the fire service? I have never had anywhere where the fire service were called to put out a fire and they complain that they have no fuel. The police, they will complain of a vehicle. You give them a vehicle, they call, they tell you that there is no fuel. And you see the same police station vehicle being used illegally to go to girlfriends. It is true. I will not say anything here that is not true. So you are warned. I repeat, you are warned. And this is the final warning because we signed a ceasefire, you have violated it, it has taken 2 years. I'm watching you. So let nobody start saying, oh, now the president has turned his attention on the police and the security services. For the army, I warned them twice and they know what is going on. We send you home or send you to court. And that is exactly what is going to happen. We don't have vehicles. You provide a vehicle. We don't have fuel. And then a person has a case. He provides fuel. Now, if somebody provides fuel, which the state is supposed to provide, give him a receipt so that the state will refund him. But what happens also to the vehicle, the fuel that has been supplied? Sometimes you say, oh, we are given 5 liters IG. How many liters a day for a police vehicle? A station vehicle? Average 2 liters. Okay, we will solve that problem, but that is no excuse for you to tax complainants. Average 2 liters a day. Okay, which I doubt, but let me tell you one thing. I used to be given 15 liters for a week. That is average 2 liters, 2.5 liters a day. And I used to be very efficient. I have a lot of people that can attest to that. And I had only one station for the whole country. But anywhere we are needed, we are there. And sometimes I used to spend my own money to fuel the vehicle. You see, building a nation requires selfless sacrifice. I have done that on many occasions. Sometimes I'll be on duty at the camp, community camp, there's no fuel. I use my own money to buy. I don't ask for compensation. I'm not saying you should do that, but we should understand that it requires personal sacrifice for this country to be what we want it to be. Japan is what it is today thanks to the sacrifice of Japanese people. Not necessarily those are the people that are enjoying today. Those who built Japan are maybe gone or too old. But they take pride in the fact that they sacrificed for Japan to be a world-class country, economy, after the devastating Second World War. If you want to be like that, if you want the economic superpower status, you don't expect us to get it because we are all sitting down and let the government do it. We should all sacrifice for the development of this country. So, but what doubts me is the fact that each year, at the budget consultations, the issue of fuel is not raised until after the budget has been passed. And when I receive complaints about this police station not being functional, despite the fact that you have a vehicle, you say, oh, it's fuel. So we will look at the fuel again and see how best we can address the situation. But that is no excuse. If you don't have fuel, why do you keep? And then the vehicles are never parked. They are seen in town picking firewood and sometimes sheep and chickens. So where do you get the fuel for that? Or the station officer pays for it? Well, I'm giving you a hard time because people give me a hard time complaining about your people. So if I'm on fire, you are also on fire. I will not spare you because we signed a ceasefire. You remember you signed a ceasefire in my office? Good. Anyway, in order to bring police services closer to communities, the Gambian Police Force has formally opened and inaugurated 5 police stations in KMC, North Bank region, Lower River region, and Central River region respectively. Furthermore, over 30 satellite posts were opened countrywide from January 2013 to date. A new forensic laboratory to help in the detection of crime was also recently commissioned at the police headquarters in Banjul. With regard to correctional institutions, plans are underway to renovate all the prisons as well as build a new ultra-modern maximum security prison for dangerous drug dealers and murderers. We also want to thank the Republic of China on Taiwan for helping us realize what has always been my dream. That is a forensic laboratory that will ensure that the right people are taken to court to account for the offenses they have committed. Without a forensic lab, it has been very difficult to provide indisputable evidence in court in most cases. And this forensic laboratory would go a long way in solving one of the teething problems of the Gambia law enforcement, not only the police force, but this laboratory can be used by the drug enforcement agencies, immigration officials, and others. Civil service management and reform, Mr. Speaker. The civil service, being the machinery for the implementation of government policies and programs, will continue to receive my utmost attention to ensure better performance anchored on a resource-based system. Government will continue to pursue the key objectives of ensuring at all times a civil service that is highly motivated, professional, dedicated, effective, efficient, and responsive to national development aspirations and objectives. During this legislative year, my government, through the Personnel Management Office, will bring to this Assembly the revised Civil Service Regulatory Framework for your consideration. These regulatory instruments have been reviewed because they no longer reflect the current realities of the service. Their recent rigorous revision underscores the determination of my government to stamp out all forms of indiscipline and misconduct from the public service. When passed, the revised PSC regulations will also complement the anti-corruption bill that was recently enacted by this body. Together with the Economic Crimes Act and other relevant criminal codes, this should send a strong signal to anyone contemplating on committing any crime or misdemeanor. No form or level of corruption or wastage will be tolerated by my government. Also, as it goes for the security services, it also goes for the civil service. Their salaries are too small. Well, if your salary is too small for you, leave. But there's no reason for you to take money from others, which is corruption, because salaries are small. If you take money because salaries are small, let's say a secretary, then the senior assistant secretary takes money, the principal assistant secretary takes money, the DPS takes money, the permanent secretary takes money. Each will take according to the level of responsibility. What will be left to build a school? And then the president also decides to take money because he's responsible for the whole country. Well, at the end of the day, you, the lawyers, will not even have a salary. Because the money will get to me first before it goes to the minister and then what? So corruption doesn't pay. And in both the Quran and the Bible, he said, thou shalt not cheat. You take money and then go to the mosque and start praying. Or you steal money and go and build a mosque. It's a waste, because God will not reward you for that. And that is why you see, sometimes you have a mosque that is started 20 years ago, is still incomplete. God will not allow anybody to pray in a mosque where dirty money is used, or a church where dirty money is used, because these are the houses of God, both the church and the mosque. So if you steal, and you say you want to have a good name by building a mosque, you are wasting your money, because the mosque will never be complete. If it is completed also, it will collapse. You have seen that recently somewhere where I don't want to name. The mosque was completed, and then before they inaugurated it, the whole ceiling collapsed with the roof. Allah is telling you that this is not the place to worship me because it's dirty. So please, be honest enough. If the salary is small, just resign. You will continue to train people. In those days, degree holders were very scarce, but today we have a lot of them. So if you resign with your BA, you have somebody with a PhD without a job, you will employ the person. But it's not the PhD or the BA that is important. I'll give priority to somebody with grade 9 results, who is committed, honest, and ready to work, than somebody with a PhD with distinction who is dishonest, crooked, and wicked. Yes. So don't think that your academic qualification matter as so much as your integrity. An illiterate is better than a well-educated crook, because the damage is, if you compare the statistics of damages, we know where it comes from, where it is worse. So, please, the civil service also is not a conscript civil service. You opt to join and you can opt to leave. But if you are caught for corruption and you say small salaries are not a defense, and thank God the judiciary is here. So in mitigating circumstances, a family, somebody, the breadwinner of a family of 5, he's the only breadwinner and first offender. Well, sin started from Adam and Eve, and that's why we are suffering. So if a first offender is a defense for a harsh punishment or to get a lenient punishment, I think we are encouraging crime. So these are not mitigating circumstances. If I marry 10 wives and I know my salary is small, I should think of how to feed the 10 wives in the first place, how to clothe them, how to house them, how much it will cost, and the children that will come after. So 10 wives is not an excuse in a court of law. 90 children is not an excuse for stealing government property. So let me make that very clear. Many times I read your judgments and I see the defense giving flowing tribute to the fact that the guy is a first offender. You cannot pay tribute to a criminal. So I don't say it's a first offender. Yes, it's a first offender, but everything has a beginning. So a small salary and a large family cannot be mitigating factors in a court of law with regards to corruption. Please. Well, my government has zero tolerance for corruption in whatever form and level. There is zero tolerance and Operation No Compromise as well with regards to corruption, drugs, indiscipline, and other vices. And that is the reason for the high number of former senior government officials being tried in the courts for various offenses. Before, we used to dismiss them and let them go. But what did we realize? You dismiss them, you let them go, they set up a business to say, well, at least what I've stolen is benefiting me. Now it will not benefit you. Whatever you have stolen, you will spend 3/4 of it paying a lawyer to defend you at the law courts. At the end of the day, you go to jail if you are convicted, and by the time you come out, you have nothing left. Then you go back to scratch. Is it worth it? No. If you know that the salary is not enough, leave and go and find a way of earning enough money to keep your family afloat. Mr. Speaker, other key areas that government will continue to focus on include building the capacities of ministries and departments to enable them to deliver on their various mandates for the effective realization of national development goals and aspirations. In this direction, we accord high priority to the finalization of both the pension actuarial study to establish an appropriate benchmark for the civil service pension reform and the pay and grading review, as well as the implementation of a civil service revolving loan scheme in order to boost our staff recruitment and retention. The reality of the matter is that it is very pathetic, and that's the reality, that pensioners can hardly afford a bag of rice in this country. This is unacceptable. These are people that have rendered selfless service to this country, and it is the duty of my government to make sure that they earn a decent living with regards to pensions. And that is why we are giving them a priority. If you now, a bag of rice, the cheapest is $9.50, and your pension is $500. You cannot buy a bag of rice, you cannot even buy fish. Then what is the use of the pension? So this issue is being seriously addressed, and before the end of the year, we will take positive action with regards to ameliorating the situation. We also realize that if a civil servant takes a loan from these commercial banks, he is asking for one-way ticket to either prison or to a courthouse. One, they will not be able to pay because the interest rate is very high, and their salaries may not be able to sustain it, and so they will default in paying, and rather than lose face, they start snatching from projects and some loose money that is available in government. There is no loose money that is free. It is there, but it has to be used for public interest. So you start pinching here and there, and you pay the bank. Then you detect that you have stolen, and then you are in trouble. So in order to make sure that civil servants can take loans and sleep well, we introduced the civil service revolving loan scheme, where the interest rate, I won't tell you. If you want to know, join the civil service. But it will be so minimal that it will not affect your day-to-day responsibilities in your family and taking care of yourself. This is going to be a model scheme, and it's being already have instructed the Minister of Finance to implement it, and it is going to be implemented. But please, don't take loans to take additional wives. That is illegal. Also, the surname of loan is repay. So when you take loans, and since it is revolving, remember that when you pay your loan on time, others would also have access to the, so don't prevent others from having access after you've already received the loan, please. Timely repayment of loans would be very important for the survival and the efficacy of the revolving loan scheme. Mr. Speaker, youth development. Youth development is critical for the progress of any nation. Therefore, my government will always work in the interest of the youth and promote their welfare through education, agriculture, sports, enterprise development, and employment in general. The youth and sports sector will intensify campaigns on promoting attitudinal change among the youth through such activities as drama, songs, workshops, and youth banterbars. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to encourage the youth to scale up agricultural production in all regions through youth farm initiatives as a way of providing employment and training opportunities in the agriculture and fishery sector. Similarly, training in income-generating activities, business enterprise development and management are interventions earmarked to guide our youth towards entrepreneurship and employability. In the process, the rehabilitation and refurbishment of structures in Sapo and Nyanibere farms will be undertaken this year. Mr. Speaker, on sports development, government through the Ministry of Youth and Sport intends to focus on two main principles of promoting grassroots sports development, namely diversifying sports intervention and decentralizing sporting activities across the country. Mr. Speaker, many a time we see on TV some NGOs and others coming, and then one of the things they will say is that the youth are marginalized, are not properly taken care of. You see, if you want to make money as an NGO, it's better you tell the truth rather than lie. And in fact, there was this workshop that really offended me, that Gambian women are marginalized. I have the longest serving vice president in the world, female vice president. My cabinet has the highest number of ministers in the whole world. And today, those countries that say 50-50 in the National Assembly, they are following my footsteps. As a military government, I'm the first military government to appoint a female minister in Africa. And when people say women are being marginalized in this country, this is unacceptable. Youth are not being taken care of. This is a lie. If you know the definition of youth, why are we building schools? When I was going to school, there were only 2 high schools that belong to government. Today, I cannot count the number of high schools and senior secondary schools. And this one for elderly people? No. It's for the young people of this country that qualify, that fall within the bracket of youth. You go to the University of the Gambia, go to the National Taipei University or any university in Taiwan, you find young Gambians there. They qualify as youth. So where have they been neglected? We are creating the conducive environment for the youth to be useful in this country. But there is a saying in Mandinka, you can take a horse to a well to drink, but you can never force it to drink. And this is what is happening. We have all sorts of schemes to train the youth and equip them to be employable. But if they decide not to work and they want to go across the river, that's a choice. But for anybody to say the youth are marginalized in this country, that is criminal. You have the university for the first time. How many youths have been trained in the university? You have schools. When I was going to school, there were only 2 government high schools. How many senior secondary schools do we have today? And when I was going to school, there was only 1 scholarship, and that's the government, when we passed common entrance. And that is what I benefited from. Not because of the benevolence of the government, but it says that if you attain a particular mark, you have a government scholarship. And in those days, the monthly allowance, they call it subsistence allowance, was $10 in 1978. Today, how many Gambians are going to university and their parents don't even know how much they are being charged to pay? Because my government is taking care of that. So for anybody to sit at a workshop and say the youth are being marginalized, that is criminal. This is unacceptable. Of course, no government can provide employment for everybody. The Almighty Allah, the most powerful, we call him the Almighty, He didn't make everybody rich. So do you expect the government to provide employment for anybody? I wish we can do that, but we can't. Even if you provide employment, those who do not want to work, what are you going to do with them? Force them? No. So the youth of this country should thank God that they live in this environment. Let them look at the neighborhood and ask people how many are going to university on a scholarship that is not provided by the government, and their parents don't even know how much they are paying. Gambian youth and Gambian women should thank Allah, because we are doing everything possible for you. Thank God the women are participating fully in all the development projects in this country. They are contributing a great deal, but the youth, unfortunately, their contribution leaves less to be desired. It's still on, they have a long way to go. But for God's sake, don't stand at a workshop and say, I'm doing this for the youth, they are marginalized. Then ask yourself, the university is for who? The high schools and senior secondary schools are for who? The skill centers that we are building, they are for who? And the scholarships. So, what we need is a change of attitude. And a change of attitude cannot come from the school. A change of attitude has to be inculcated at the home. And I urge all male parents, because I don't want to overload the women, to take their responsibilities seriously. When they are going to school, they don't know that we are the fathers. As soon as they have a good job, the first salary will appear at the office, tell him that his father is at the door. Even a puppy, a dog, when it is a puppy, if you are hostile to it, when it turns into a dog, it will never follow you. Most of a human being, your children. Let us take our responsibilities as parents seriously. Remember that God will also judge us for what we do. How is it possible that the boys and girls attend the same schools, attend the same classes, and at the worst examination, grade 12, only girls have distinction? 98% of those with A+ grades in this country are girls, and they attend the same classes, they are taught the same lessons. Why? Because we left everything, the burden of caring for the family, in the hands of the woman. Obviously, the natural inclination of a woman, a mother, is to the daughter. So the maximum priority is given to the daughter, attention, and if they have spare time, they take care of the sons, out of sympathy. While we, the men, are sitting somewhere discussing about nightclubs, good wives, beautiful daughters, and politics. Every day you lie against the government. You sit at the Bantaban day in, day out. You have nothing to do but criticize. Now is the dry season. Go to the provinces, the women are in the gardens. The men are just wearing their waramba provided by their wives to come here and enter school girls. This is unacceptable. This trend is unacceptable. So that is why the boys, unfortunately, have very little attention, and so they feel not motivated to do anything. If the mother and father take their responsibilities seriously, you will realize that there will be no, it will be a balanced and level playing field. But obviously I will not blame the mothers. They provide the feeding, they provide the uniform, they cook, they wash, and at the same time, discipline the children whilst we are sitting. And also remember, going to the mosque and avoiding family responsibility, you are not worshiping God but the devil. Go to the Quran, yes, the imams are here. But all that also, when I talk about irresponsible parents, male parents, is the Muslims. Look at the children of Christians. They are so disciplined, and basic education is here. Look at the results and see among Christian boys and girls whether there is this disparity in results. No. Because the father is responsible, the mother is responsible. So what type of religion are we following? That makes us so irresponsible that as soon as you see a child towards, now it's end of term, they come with a piece of paper, you know what that means? School fees for the next term. And you start holding these beads, go to your mother. Go to your mother. Don't we have sympathy for our wives? Why do we have to be so mean to our wives? I'll tell you something I did, and you can try it. well, maybe now you'll fail because I'm saying it on national TV. Give 20,000 to a man and call his wife aside and give her 10,000. After 1 month, call both of them and ask how they spent it. $9,500 from the wife would have been spent on the family, including taking care of the same husband. And the husband will not tell you where he spent his money. Don't laugh, this is serious. And it's a reality. And this is what makes me angry in this country. Irresponsible parents. And tomorrow you blame the children. Or now you blame me for the behavior of children. I'm the one who spoiled the children. Am I the one taking care of your children? I'm taking care of my own children. And nobody can say that any of my children has misbehaved in town. They don't go to Sunday beach because I will not allow them. But the government also cannot go to the extent of preventing people from going to the beach when they have parents. If you cannot take care of your children, don't expect the government to discipline them. How many of you would be happy if somebody walks in now and says, your daughter is at the police station? What happened? They say the way she dressed. You look at me here and say, who the hell are you to take my daughter to police station the way she dresses? Would you be happy? No. So don't expect this government to discipline your children in the streets. We only do that when they violate the law and we take them before a court of law. But disciplining your children is the sole and divine responsibility of the parents. Sunday Beach. There's no law passed yet as far as I know. My Lord, the Chief Justice is here. Is there any restriction on anybody going to the beach? Any Gambian? No. We see teenagers drinking alcohol. I say, children of today. The week is still 7 days. It has not changed. We have changed. But if you expect the mother to take care of the boys as well, discipline the boys, you're making a grave mistake because they don't have that strength left. So, for God's sake, and for the sake of fear of Allah, for Muslims, the imams should address this issue in your sermons and whatever. I think you should concentrate more on the behavior of Muslim fathers than on the behavior of girls and the way they dress. Because sometimes some of you who speak vehemently against it, your daughters dress worse than that. It's a reality. I'm not a hypocrite and I'll never be a hypocrite. But the Muslim men in this country, let us change our ways and let us read the Quran well, and we will see that responsibility as a parent is very important. It's one of the core principles of worshiping the Almighty Allah. So let us not overburden our wives. Oh, the wife has 8 children. Even a tractor, if you overload it in a short period of time, it will have a short lifespan. And then we sit around the Bantaba looking at schoolgirls. And I think very soon we'll pass legislation also to balance the age limit where who can marry who. I think it's very important. In that case, we will safeguard the old wives at home and young children getting married to people that have a few years to live as active people. That brings us to energy. Well, when you are old and married, if you are 70 years old and you marry a 12-year-old, you certainly don't have the energy. And that brings us to energy sector. Mr. Speaker, my government will continue. Mr. Speaker, my government will continue to promote universal access to uninterrupted supply of electricity and water throughout the country. This is in recognition of the fact that access to water and electricity is directly linked to the development goals outlined in our medium-term development plan and Vision 2020. Therefore, in the next 5 years, Government will continue to expand generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity and water in the Greater Banjul area and the provinces to support the growing demand for essential services such as health, education, and household use. In this direction, the present generating capacity of 69 megawatts will be increased to 150 during the next 5 years to enhance new electricity and water connections to consumers. The objective of my government is to make sure that every household in this country is provided with electricity, affordable, accessible, and reliable. It has now become evident that the conventional way of electricity generation through fossil fuel powered generators is very expensive, environmentally unfriendly, and unsustainable. In consequence, my government will continue to promote energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy to complement the conventional electricity generation. Accordingly, the Gambia Renewable Energy Center, GREC, will be upgraded and made more responsive to the renewable energy requirements of the population. To support the generation of renewable energy systems in the country, a legal and regulatory framework is being finalized. A standard power purchase agreement and a tariff and renewable energy law will also be instituted before the end of the year to serve as the main platform for all potential investors. Mr. Speaker, defense. The Gambia will continue to preserve and defend its territorial integrity and the safety and security of its people. We will also continue to participate in international peacekeeping missions. And from the early 1990s to date, the Gambia has always used its military expertise and visionary foreign policy and diplomacy to play a major role in peace talks and contributed peacekeepers to not only troubled areas in ECOWAS region, but to Africa and other parts of the world in various peacekeeping missions. Mr. Speaker, the strength of our military and defense policies lies in my government's ability to build capacity, improve training and logistics, and in ensuring an enabling environment for efficient and gallant armed forces to deliver. This is a major strategy for the development of our security apparatus. There is no doubt that our forces are well-trained, disciplined, and committed enough for both national and international engagements. At present, Mr. Speaker, our region is threatened with major issues relating to terrorism and organized criminal gangs, disguised as Islamist fundamentalists who carry out incursions in some of our neighboring countries, especially in Mali and its adjacent countries. Our policy is to promote peace and to contain conflicts and insurgencies so as to pave the way for stability and development within our borders and beyond. There cannot be any development without peace and stability. Therefore, it is important that we continue to promote collaboration and multilateral security approaches to these challenges in our sub-region and beyond. We will continue to work with our neighbors and friends to train, strengthen, and expand our armed forces, as well as build strategic capacities to monitor, detect, and deal with any potential conflict that may hinder progress, peace, and stability. The maintenance of a highly skilled and well-equipped armed forces that can be deployed to a theater of warfare, to any theater of warfare, is the bedrock of our defense policy. Many a time people think that the soldiers are a waste of money. They are not. In fact, the security forces, including the police force, are the ones that allow you to enjoy yourself and enjoy the developments and benefit from the developments that are taking place. In fact, without peace and security, you may worship the Almighty Allah, but with a lot of difficulty. Therefore, peace and stability and security will never be compromised at any altar, no matter what the consequences are going to be. So the armed and security services will be given a priority, so that whatever achievements we have in terms of socio-economic development will be of benefit to the people of this country. People must be free to go to work at any time they wish, thanks to the security services, both the police and the armed forces. When I talk about the police, don't look at every policeman and think that he's a slow blower. No. There are decent policemen who are also making so. Decent policemen and decent soldiers who are very honest and very hardworking and patriotic. But the English say, one rotten potato. Well, one thing they didn't qualify is whether one rotten Irish potato or African potato spoils the bag. But that is why we generalize and say the police. If you are Gambian and you go outside and commit a crime, they are not going to call you by your name. They are going to say Gambians. So that is why I'm saying the police. So IGP, it doesn't mean that all your policemen are bad, but some of them are very, very bad. So also are your soldiers. Many a time on my convoy we arrest some soldiers and hand them over to you. So it's not only you, IGP. I know you are very demoralized, but you signed a ceasefire that you did not honor. So our defense policy also is that we will never, ever use our armed forces to invade any country. We will not initiate war, but let me also make it very clear. If you dare attack us, you will regret it. And we will also, if you are attacked, not only would we defend ourselves, but we will make sure that we destroy the attacker to the extent that for the next 15,000 years, you will not be in a position to attack anybody again. You may be small, but you know a needle is very small. Nobody uses a needle to clean your ear. You know what is going to happen. So that is what the Gambia is. We are not going to invade any country, but we will only defend our territorial interests, we will defend our territory, and we will contribute to international peacekeeping, be it in the Gambia, be it in Africa, or elsewhere. As long as they are human beings, we are part of the same great human family. Peace and stability is a human right for all citizens of this world, and whoever is in a position to put out a conflict in any part of the world should do so. Gambia, within our limited means, will contribute to international peacekeeping wherever we are required. That brings us to regional government, originally called local governments and lands. Mr. Speaker, we are all local. Even Banjulians are local in Banjul. People from Kanila are local in Kanila. We are local Gambians. Well, during the colonial era, they used to call us natives. Yes, well, that is better than subjects. That was a compliment, natives. But most of the time they call us subjects. That was 48 years ago, or 49 years ago. So we are still natives, we are still locals. But regional governments are very important because they are the engine of economic development in the areas of their jurisdiction, especially with the grassroots. On a normal functioning regional government or local government system, it is the regional governments that come up with development projects that, if they are beyond their scope of funding can be referred to the central government for funding. In fact, the regional government, together with the regional traditional rulers and the communities, should dictate to government what they want their area to become. So regional governments are very important, and I'll urge all governors to take their responsibilities very seriously. Well, we have not reached the point yet where regional governors would have their own cabinets like in some wealthy countries, but we are going to, very soon we will reach that point where the regional governments will be semi-autonomous in terms of development, and they would dictate to government what they want to do and what government interventions should be. Well, that means when you sleep and the telephone rings in a low tone you cannot hear it, that means you are a deep sleeper. So put it off. You are not sleeping here. You see the judiciary with their wigs, they are looking at me as, not from us, it's behind us. And I think it's from one of the chiefs. And I think I know who it is. And it looks like somebody who got a manual not long ago. Please, your manual will not call you whilst you are here, because he's also here. Mr. Speaker, so my government, with regards to regional governments and lands, the principle of decentralization and development initiated at grassroots level is being upheld by my government and observed and respected by my government. Although most projects are implemented by the center, due to the huge costs involved, the citizens expect services and development from local authorities. It is with this in mind that government is implementing the Community Improvement Livelihood Project and the Community-Driven Development Project, CDDP and CILIP. These two projects seek to build the capacities of communities, groups and organizations at grassroots level by equipping communities with skills and expertise necessary for economic growth and development. Mr. Speaker, that brings us to foreign affairs. Mr. Speaker, my government's foreign policy remains guided by the purposes and principles of our national values and development aspirations, the charters of the United Nations and the African Union, on the basis of mutual respect for the sovereign equality, independence, territorial integrity of states, and most importantly, bless you, promoting, safeguarding, and achieving the country's national socio-economic interests. This is in tandem with the quest for the maintenance of international peace and security for development and the promotion of friendly relations and cooperation among all peace-loving and progress-oriented nations. Mr. Speaker, my government continues to play an active role both in terms of bilateral and multilateral engagements. At the bilateral level, the government of the Republic of the Gambia and the government of the Republic of Senegal have taken concrete steps to make sure that the Senegal-Gambian Permanent Secretariat is fully operational at the earliest convenience. My government's engagement with other friendly countries such as Taiwan, Nigeria, Cuba, Kuwait, Venezuela, Japan, Turkey, Morocco, Mauritania, and others, just to name a few, continues to be further strengthened and deepened for mutual benefit. Our cooperation with Taiwan, Nigeria, and Cuba in vital areas such as health, education, agriculture, and the judiciary remains strong. As I speak to you, arrangements are well advanced to convene a joint commission with Venezuela in the beginning of the second quarter of this year. Following my last visit to the Islamic Republic of Mauritania last May, The governments of the two countries have agreed on the establishment of a ministerial task force to review the cooperation agreements in place and speed up implementation. The experts of the two governments met in Nouakchott on the 4th and 5th of February 2013 to prepare the ground for the inaugural meeting of the Ministerial Task Force in Banjul at the earliest convenience. Mr. Speaker, I am particularly delighted to inform this. I think this is March, not August, but English says August gathering, though we are in March. Sometimes English is very interesting. You meet in June, they tell you this August gathering. But anyway, that's the language. I'm particularly delighted to inform this August gathering that my government continues to facilitate increased visibility of the Gambia in the International Committee of Nations through the creation and the opening of new frontiers with the outside world. A number of cooperation agreements have recently been signed with countries such as Ethiopia, Kuwait, Australia, Turkey, East European countries, and Qatar, among others. In fact, also the same cooperation agreements have been signed with a lot of Asian countries. And at the recently concluded Africa Union Summit in Addis Ababa, an agreement on the establishment of a joint commission was signed with the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, together with a memorandum of understanding on tourism and culture. Earlier on, a framework agreement of cooperation between the Gambia and Cote d'Ivoire was signed last September on the margins of the 67th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York. Mr. Speaker, my foreign policy and the foreign policy objectives of this country is to have excellent relations with all nations of the earth. Well, even God has detractors, but my policy is, rather than antagonize those who do not want you, we leave them alone and work with those who want us to work with us. My policy and the policy of my government would always be for the maintenance of friendly relations with all countries of the earth. We have an open door policy, and that also is reflected in our culture here and practices at home. Gambia is called the Smiling Coast because of the genuine hospitality of Gambian people. A Gambian smile is genuine. Gambians also are so transparent that sometimes I feel comfortable. If a Gambian doesn't like it, he will show it. We don't normally pretend. And so we don't subscribe to racism. As Muslims and Christians, we believe, and that's a fact, that we are created by the same Almighty Allah, and we are all descendants of the same Adam and Eve. I'm very proud of the Gambian people, the fact that they are very tolerant. No person has ever been beaten in this country for being white, green, or whatever. And nobody has ever been beaten in this country because of your religion. And that is what is going to continue. Tolerance to humanity. We accept all forms of human beings except criminals. But in diplomacy also there is a norm that is called reciprocating or reciprocity. Many a time we see Gambians being deported for flimsy reasons and handcuffed up to the Banjul International Airport. I'm not saying no Gambians should be deported, but they should be deported based on genuine reasons and not based on race. Now, many a time also you see Gambians that have spent more than 20 years in a foreign land, and all of a sudden they are deported without even luggage. All what they have earned over the past 20 years, they have lost it. And to add insult to injury, they are handcuffed throughout the flight out of Banjul International Airport, even though they are not violent. This is unacceptable. We may be poor, but we are dignified people. And I want to assure this March Assembly of the National Assembly that I will not tolerate Gambians being brutalized because they are black or because they are Gambians and they have not committed any crime. So, diplomacy is about reciprocating. Goodwill for goodwill, ill will for ill will. And I want to make it very clear that when you deport a Gambian, treat him nicely, he's not a criminal. If you handcuff him up at Banjul International Airport, those who handcuff him will also arrest them and handcuff them for violating human rights. If you decide to deport any African or any citizen for that matter, at least be decent enough to allow him to take what he has earned over 20 years. But to deport him with only what he is wearing on, and then handcuff him as a criminal in a plane full of passengers, this is unacceptable. If you deport anybody, I'm not saying you shouldn't deport people, but you should have genuine reasons for deporting a Gambian. If not, for any Gambian deported, I will deport 2 of your citizens. Don't think that because we are poor, my people will be maltreated anywhere else in the world. It is unacceptable. If you are forced to deport them, but treat them humanly and make sure that whatever they earn lawfully in your country, allow them to come home with that. Some will say, oh, Gambian is for direct foreign investment. We are not averse to that, but our socio-economic development and dignity is not dependent on that. It will be dependent on our hard work and the resources that the Almighty Allah has given this country, and thank God we have enough of that. So don't look at our poverty and take advantage of that and brutalize my people anywhere in the world. I don't care what nation it is. We all have one vote at the Security Council, at the UN, and any organization. And so don't think that because you are big and rich, you can maltreat Gambians, violate their rights, humiliate them, and get away with it. For any Gambian that is deported unlawfully, billahi wallah ta'ala, I'll deport 2 of you, get them, and get away with it. For any Gambian that is deported unlawfully, billahi wallah ta'ala, I'll deport 2 of your citizens. And I'll also ask the Gambian how long he has stayed there, what he has there, and we'll look at, you also have your people here. If the Gambian stayed 10 years there, there are people that have stayed 10 years here. So we also deport them. Because diplomacy is about tit for tat. So the arbitrary deportation of Gambians is unacceptable. And I'm making it clear that this is part of our foreign policy, that if you maltreat a Gambian or deport a Gambian unlawfully, just because they are Gambians or because they are black, we will also deport your citizens because they are your citizens and the quality you think is good. So, this country, I will never tolerate Gambians becoming racist. And those who are coming to this country also, let me make it very clear that racists, homosexuals will not be tolerated in this country. If you are racist and homosexual, stay where homosexuality and racists are encouraged. I will not encourage racism for whatever reason, because as good Muslims and Christians, we are not supposed to discriminate people based on race. What the Quran and the Bible teaches us is good people and bad people. We will not antagonize you because you are white or green. We will not kick you out of the country because you are white or you are not a Muslim or a Christian. That is up to you. Everybody is welcome in this country, except racists, drug dealers, and homosexuals. Now, if anybody feels offended with this, you are free to take all the homosexuals that you know of in this country, give them free visa, they are welcome to go and stay in your country. We have no problems with that. So we can export them. But so homosexuals in this country, this is unacceptable. Why we want this country to survive? Homosexuality is anti-humanity. If a man marries a man, a woman marries a woman, then there will be no 5-year development plan because there will be no babies. You want us to be extinct? No way. We want this country to prosper. We want humanity to progress. This is what Allah said when He created Adam and Eve. Go out of the world and procreate. So if we decide, and what is also interesting, intolerance to homosexuality, they say, is a violation of human rights. I have chickens and turkey in my farm, and I've never seen a homosexual turkey or a chicken. As straight as I have pigeons, and I've never seen a homosexual pigeon. So if animals respect what God said, that male and female work together to procreate, if a man and a man decide to marry in this country, I know where to put them so that they can marry well. In fact, it will be a principle of law that if you are convicted for homosexuality, we will put you in the female wing of the prison to make sure that, for you to understand that Allah says you belong here, not the other way around. We will not allow a process where God said we should move forward, and we allow people to move backwards. That's unacceptable. And it is interesting when you look at the debate about homosexuality. They say rights to marry. But why should you also insist on the right to adopt children? If people are homosexual like you, would you adopt children? So when you decide that you want to marry a man and you are a man, which bad parent would allow you to adopt his children and turn them into homosexuals, and then in the next 5 years there will be no children in this world? There would be children in this country. We want the population to grow. We want our wealth and natural resources to be exploited. We want the superpower status to be achieved with a large and healthy population. So those who want to prevent that, we are in the wrong country. Homosexuality is anti-God, anti-human, anti-development, anti-civilization. Maybe that is why the Neanderthals died. No, there is no single trace of Neanderthals. Maybe they later turned out to be homosexuals, and that's why they are extinct. Do you want us to be extinct? No. So homosexuals and whatever they are not welcome in the Gambia. If you are a Gambian and we get you, you will regret why you are born. So there will be no compromise on racists, drug dealers, homosexuals, pedophiles, rapists. These are not going to be tolerated in this country. If that is a violation of human rights, that is your definition of human rights. But even animals will not demand a right to be homosexual. I have buffaloes from South Africa and buffaloes from Brazil. Each time bulls fight is because the other one was trying to mate with it, because that is an insult in the animal kingdom. And I don't know why it is a gesture of romance that a man, with all your gadgets, you follow a man and think that is your wife. It will not happen in this country. So I'm making it very clear what I can compromise and what I will not compromise. And on this, we are ready to eat grass, but we will not compromise on these issues. Murderers, rapists, racists. If you are racist and you are found in fact, there is an anti-intolerance law that relates to religion. It will also cover racism. We will not tolerate Gambians being racist, to judge people because of their color or because of their origin, because that is ungodly. So that brings us to the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. Because before you talk of a right, you must know whether it's a natural right or it's a satanic right. And I believe that allowing homosexuality is a satanic right, and we are not satanic worshippers. Well, my government will continue to provide support for the judiciary and the justice sector for its role in enhancing the speedy dispensation of justice. This is still a problem in this country. A key area of concern in this drive will be to match the improvements already registered in the conditions of service for the judicial staff and personnel, with expansion in judicial infrastructure, notably courthouses and residences for judges and magistrates. May I inform this legislative body that very soon the Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2013 will be presented to this Assembly for enactment into law. Mr. Speaker, finally, the Gambia will remain active in peacekeeping operations in Darfur and in all other endeavors aimed at fostering sustainable peace for development in the African continent. We will also continue to closely collaborate with supranational bodies such as the United Nations, the African Union, the Organization of Islamic Conference, and the Economic Community of West African States, as well as the Commonwealth. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, in spite of amazing achievements that continue to bewilder our detractors, both at home and abroad, a lot more can be achieved if we do not rest on our laurels or become complacent in the difficult task of nation building, which is a continuous and relentless process. Therefore, we must all work together regardless of political, religious, or ethnic affiliations to make more progress and collectively confront our challenges. To my sisters and brothers in the diaspora, let us join hands to develop this country for the benefit of the younger ones and for posterity. I take this unique opportunity to congratulate every patriotic Gambian and friend of the Gambia who contributed one way or the other to the success registered so far, and advise that we redouble our efforts in order to realize our noble goals and aspirations. It is only in coming together and working hand in glove together as a nation that the economic superpower status that we yearn for can be achieved. Mr. Speaker, since even religion, we have different denominations, so also in politics we would have divergence of views and political ideas. That is not bad as long as we realize also that irrespective of our religious inclination and our political inclination, we are all citizens of the country called the Republic of the Gambia, and we are all duty-bound to protect the national interests and work together to develop a country that our children would be proud of. So unity of purpose and direction and objective is indispensable if you are to achieve the economic superpower status that we yearn for. We don't want an economic superpower status where the majority of the 98% of the revenue or the benefits of that is taken outside. We want Gambians to take the lead in investments, in the business sector, the private sector. We want development, our efforts to be complemented by others. We don't want the assistance of friendly countries and donors. Our own effort be complementary to that. Only we, the Gambians, can dictate the pace of development for our nation. And only we, the Gambia, can take this country to where we want with the help of the Almighty Allah. So, irrespective of what we believe in, with regards to politics, whether you are yellow, red, green, or whatever, the important thing is that as a patriotic Gambian, if you love your country, let us put politics aside and work together. When it is time for politics, as it is now, we can go and talk to the Gambian people, present ourselves. It's up to the Gambian people to choose whom they trust, or which party they can count on. But after that, let us work together. Let us emulate our former colonial masters. Yes, they will accuse each other of so many things during campaigns. But once the elections have passed, and somebody has won, they respect that person and work together as a country. That is not only for the Gambia, but for Africa. Unfortunately, most devastating disputes in Africa are as a result of political differences. It is sad that thousands of Africans have to die before a small dispute can be settled. We have cases of that in Cote d'Ivoire. And I pray and beg our brothers and sisters in Kenya. We know what happened the last time they had elections. We pray to the Almighty Allah and plead with our brothers and sisters in Kenya not to settle this dispute by violence. Violence and tribalism will not take any country anywhere. Even in Europe, they have different tribes. But how do you hear a tribal war in Europe? Why is it that tribal wars are only unique to Africa and Asia? Each time we fight as tribes in a country, we are not enhancing development, we are entrenching poverty, destitution, and backwardness. I appeal to all parties in Kenya. I'm not supporting anybody. All what I want is peace in Africa. And we do hope that, we pray, that our brothers and sisters in Kenya will resolve this dispute peacefully so that nobody loses his life or his job. It is sad to see African women and children in refugee camps where children have no access to education. It is disheartening to watch on CNN UN helicopters or WFP helicopters flying over an African territory, dropping sacks of rice, and women and children running like hungry chickens. It's very sad. But not the outside can get rid of these images. We, the Africans, must take it upon ourselves to learn lessons from the others. When we stop killing each other, such images will not appear on any international network. Let us learn to resolve problems peacefully. Each time we fight, outsiders are benefiting to the detriment of Africa. Once again, all places where there are conflicts because of politics, may the Almighty Allah intervene and put patience and love in our hearts rather than impatience, hatred, and violence. Mr. Speaker, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my singular honor and privilege to declare the 2013 legislative session officially open. I wish you all very fruitful deliberations during the legislative year, and I pray that the Almighty Allah continues to be our protector, helper, and guide forever, and grant us resounding success as we march towards achieving the MDGs, Vision 2020, and above all, our noble goal of becoming an economic superpower in absolute peace and security. I thank you all for your kind attention.